Welcome, everyone, to the Energy Advisors Podcast. I'm your host, Rex, that Energy Guy. Glad to have you listening or watching wherever you are around the globe. 18 countries now. Can you believe that? That's crazy. I got an exciting interview today, and this is an industry-wide big impact what's happening. There are issues around renewables where there's not always been the best actors in the industry. So I've got a great guest for us today. But before we get started, we'll do a little bit of house cleaning here. We want to thank our partners in the show. Tax Hive. Listen, this is a new one that we had come on and be a partner in the show. Renewables has such a huge impact with tax credits, and it's really part of the financial equation. And if you're not getting the maximum tax credits and then all the rebates and things that you're entitled to, it actually can be detrimental to you. So we partner with Tax Hive because they're not a bunch of guys that are out there making BS claims. They're legit. They're a Kevin O'Leary company, so we're excited to work with them. So visit taxhive.com and you can get more information about their services. Our other partner in the program that we'd love to showcase is Smart, and you'll be excited about this as a consumer. Smart is a new concept that is coming to the marketplace with retail locations all over the United States. The Smart energy centers have an array of products and services that can help you make a transition from using what you had today into a renewable centered house. So intelligent energy management systems, solar and beyond. It's incredible. So go to their website at smartenergycenters.com. All right, with no further delay, I'm excited to get this interview going because there's so many issues in compliance. If you are watching any type of media out there, it's hard not to find stories about companies going out of business, shady ethics practices, and just a lot of turmoil that's happening. And so without any further ado, we're going to talk a lot about compliance today and big initiatives that are going on industry-wide. So I'd like to welcome to the program our good friend of the show, Christopher Trocola. Chris, how are you today?
Doing great, Rex. How are you?
Fantastic. I'm excited to get you back on here. I think Mentis was one of the original, we were talking about your guys' technology, one of the original few podcast episodes. So it's good to see you again and good to reconnect. Now, I understand that a lot of things have progressed. And so can you give me a little update what's going on with Mentis and this big issue surrounding compliance?
Oh yeah, no, it's been busy over here. I've been stuck in this chair so much working that it's squeaky. So if you hear that, just know that it's just because it's broken in now.
That's right.
There's been a lot of changes in the industry over the course of the last several months since the last time I've been here. One of the biggest things is we're seeing more and more finance companies starting to step up to really take responsibility for some of the things that have been happening in the industry and what salespeople have been saying to customers and what the sales dealers have been representing. Um, Homeowners are just they're fed up. They're sick of it, right?
Yeah.
Federal Trade Commission started getting involved. The FBI's gotten involved. IRS is looking more into stuff. So what we do and what we focus on this entire time is how can we help protect the industry, protect consumers, and assist in all these compliance measures. And the way we started was we built a licensure technology, a database that rivals government regulated licensed industries like real estate and mortgage. And we took those components and we brought them to a non-regulated industry to create a certification license style program that can be used as minimalistically as a registry or all the way up to full certification, standards testing, AI proctored exams. And we have a lot of exciting news regarding that. And I know we're going to cover that a little bit more here in a little bit, but super excited about where we've gone at Mentis because now we do a lot of AI stuff. We got the AI welcome call. We got some great tools to assist in really capturing and finding out who those deceptive players are and
Mhm.
protecting the consumers and the installers and finance companies who take that long-term liability and making sure that the consumer did understand what they're looking at, did understand what they're signing, and that they weren't promised anything that they should be promised. It's called a net impression, right? What was the
Right.
net impression that the salesperson relayed to the customer? And that needs to be the right impression because they could say solar is going to be free. Well, that leaves a net impression that solar is going to be free, right? There's nothing out of pocket. You don't ever pay anything out of pocket for it. That leaves a net impression for the customer, like I'm never going to have to pay anything again. And that leaves a bad taste in their mouth, a bad taste in the government's mouth. And then, these companies like finance companies, installers have really long-term liabilities with that.
Yeah. Well, let's back up a second because I don't know if all of our audience knows. You're not just a technology geek that's, and I like to call you guys hacks and geeks. Geeks and hacks are a very an affectionate name, right? So, but you actually had industry experience with this. And so
Yeah.
real brief, because it's not like you're just some technologist coming out here and building a mousetrap to solve a problem. You actually lived this. So, real brief, can you tell us a little bit about, how you got into solar and just what you saw and then why you were compelled to bring this technology forward? I mean, no one's going to buy a home from an unlicensed realtor, and that's where
Right.
this industry needs to get.
Well, we don't get our haircuts from unlicensed barbers,
No, that's for
right?
sure. Well, I don't
Like
worry.
some
You
people
could you
seem to.
could tell how much haircut I spend, right?
Well,
You
it's
know how much.
because you went to an unlicensed barber, Rex. Uh, I've been in the industry since 2012. I started out door to door, opened up my first dealership in 2016, and grew to 27 territories. Had install, had you name it, anything involving solar, I ran with. Never got sued that entire time. Never had any legal compliance issues. It's because from the beginning, the way that we used to be trained, I remember when I had to go to Texas for 2 weeks when I just started selling door to door on my own dime to get the training in order to be allowed to sell for the company I was working for at the time. Right. So I carried that same type of respect for the industry when I started opening my company. This is where we started seeing that diminishing back in 2020. There were some bad players in every industry. There's malicious
Sure.
people who do things, and then there's unwitting participants of deception. And this is what we see most often. And actually, one of the things that had me really start my company back in 2016 before I sold it off in 2020 was I was visiting a family member, and she's elderly, and we're sitting down, we were having lunch, and somebody knocked at the door, and it happened to be a rival solar company. I was regional manager at the time. And I said, let him in, let him in, let him in. I want to hear him. I want to hear him.
Yeah.
Maybe I want to
Well, hear
recruit him, right?
hear their story.
Great pitch. The kid was awesome. He did everything he should have. He mentioned everything he should. And this is a perfect example of an unwitting participant of deception. Okay. He slides it over to this elderly woman and he says, do me a favor, sign right here so we can save your price and we're going to do a site survey in 10 days. In the state of Arizona, there's a rule called golden ager. So the right of rescission in most states is 3 business days. In Arizona, it's 10 business days for anybody over the age of 65. Okay. They scheduled a site survey for day 14 or 15, which would have been past that 10 business day mark. So
Getting
I'm trying to
past
figure
the
out what's
right of
going on.
rescission.
I'm peeking over at his iPad, trying to figure out what's going on. He won't let me see it. Finally, I get a glimpse. After she signed her name on the first page, she's scrolling through finishing the DocuSign for the actual contract.
Oh my.
I lost it. I admitted I broke his iPad. I kicked him out of the house. Called the VP of the company I was working for at the time, and I told him what happened. And his exact words were, "Well, sometimes it's what you have to do to get the sale."
Oh my goodness.
That is the most common form of deception right now, is a salesperson doing what he was told to do by his management, and sometimes upper management, which doesn't happen a lot.
Right.
I don't want anybody to think like I'm counting down on all upper management, but there's a few people out there who that's just how they've been trained. And they're participating in it without realizing they're doing anything that they shouldn't be doing.
Right.
And that's why the standards are so important to us. And that's why I started Mentis to begin with, is out of necessity. So I'm coming to it from an angle of I've seen consumers, be deceived. I've been an ethical salesperson. I've been an ethical business owner my entire career, and I want to make sure that I can help the industry however I can.
Fantastic. Now, um, when we look at a lot of the fraud issues in this industry, most of it has to do around financial disclosure.
Mhm.
People will say anything, do anything, as we've seen in this industry, to get a deal. And it's unfortunate because it's a crazy environment to have somebody who was name a job of anything else and then pop into solar and be making several $100,000 a year with no training, no licensing, and those
It's
things.
a
And
dream.
the margins are so high that these companies are just willing to do just about anything to get the sale because it's that way. And so I really like what you guys are doing and to bring some sanity to this because someone shouldn't just step into this industry. I mean, I come out, you can't be a doctor or you can't be a lawyer, any of these things without licensure. And I just think it's insane because for a lot of homeowners, we're talking a 40, 50,000 or more investment on their home,
Yeah.
and they can easily be deceived.
Oh, 100%. And it's going on to the biggest investment you're ever going to have, which is your home.
Yeah,
It's one of the
absolutely.
biggest problems, right? And now they're talking about long-term loans, they're talking about taxes, they're talking about depreciation, they're talking about warranties and all these important things. And what happens if that company goes out of business, right? Salesperson doesn't know any better. He was working at Subway yesterday or at Starbucks or wherever, would name a business,
Right.
and they had zero training. And this is what we see more often than not. They had no training prior, and they come in, they knock a door, they make a whole bunch of money. Now I'm all I started out door to door. I've knocked doors for 15 years of my life, right? I love the money that I made doing it, and we earn every penny that we make. It's not an easy job,
Right.
okay?
No.
The problem is that to make that kind of money and have zero accountability for what you said inside of a sale is fraud and it is deception and it is a problem. So we're not even talking about requiring licensure at the max. It's minimum certification, minimum standards that salespeople should be held to that make sure that in order to work in this industry, you're protecting the consumer. You have some type of fiduciary responsibility. You have some type of responsibility to your words and what you're promising that homeowner, which often gets thrown to the side.
Right. Now, I understand in our conversations prior to going on air today that you've been working with a lot of the finance companies that are
Mhm.
financing these projects in the industry. What's their reaction to what you're doing?
They love it. The biggest issue that we've had in the past with it is that Mentis is a for-profit company. We're a technology company,
Right.
right? So when we started out, yeah, obviously we charged a little bit for the sales reps to get licensed. Um, and we over time we realized like this needs to be a non-monetized effort. And this has been well received across every major player in the industry, from the financial all the way down to the contractors. That non-monetized is probably the best solution for it, but it's figuring out that level, and how can associations fit in? How can we make this more of a national, to have that national reciprocity?
Well, and I know that if the financial organizations deal with this, and the number one issue is financial disclosure, probably going to bring them a lot cleaner deals that they can actually then button up. Because, let's face it, the business model is a lot of these folks are creating a portfolio and then selling it.
Mhm.
And so I'm gonna guess that the prospect of having far less cancellations, far less issues with this because the consumer might just name the financial company.
Right. Well, there's um, agency of liability that ends up going with it, because the finance company ultimately, even though they just finance the deal, there's some precedent's been set with one of the finance companies that lost the case that shows like, well, there's an agency of liability, so it's ultimately your liability because of what you're financing and what was said during the time of sale and the net impression that was made. That net impression is absolutely crucial, right? So absolutely, we've already seen it. We have tons of data on it. We're publishing studies all the time on our website, and feel free to check it out, mentistech.ai, or mydscs.org. Scroll on the bottom, you can see these things that we publish, where salespeople, first of all, when it comes to competitive bids, they're winning more because they have this minimum standard certification. Customers are more comfortable purchasing. Same reason why you're more comfortable purchasing from, a licensed agent and not your best friend down the street. Like, I trust my friends. Do I trust them with a $500,000 home purchase? Right?
Right.
It's that type of feeling that they get when they are able to verify that salesperson on the DSCS, direct sales certification system. The other thing that's been really helpful for salespeople themselves is being able to weed it out, and it helps the companies a lot because they're seeing lower cancellation rates, and even higher lower cancellation rates, better long-term sticky deals with happier customers when they couple it with a lot of the AI tech that we have going along with it on the compliance for the back end. So now these customers from the very beginning, they're starting every sale with the end result in mind. They know that the person that they're talking to has a standard that they're held to. They're going to be ethical, or they're going to get in trouble. They're going to lose money. Nobody wants to lose money, right?
Right.
And then at the very end, we verify all that information for them. So whether it's taking advantage of some of the free services we have, or moving on and just getting full compliance, technologies with us. We want to make sure that these customers are taken care of, and it's ultimately helping capital markets look at solar deals a little bit better.
Okay. Well, I'm going to switch gears because you have some huge news to share with us. I know you've been engaged across the industry, from Department of Energy, NREL, all these organizations that are starting to hear the grumblings, or hearing the grumblings more frequently. And, it could be some of the nonprofits, it could be the finance companies, it could be the attorney generals. There's a big ecosystem that's out there that's kind of fighting with these issues. And so can you share with what you and your partners have done at Mentis to help this entire industry? Because I think this
Yeah.
is really big news.
Oh, we've spoke to absolutely pretty much every government body at this point at every level. And everybody's kind of in the same boat. Like, how do we make this without, nobody wants to pass a law to force people to become licensed, right? But once we start getting larger entities like the Federal Trade Commission get involved, that's kind of where things are going. We saw it happen in mortgage in 2008, right?
Right.
So what we've done is we've realized over the course of the last 2 years of this initiative that we've had a lot of traction. We've had a lot of voluntary adoption of licensure across multiple states and multiple programs. A lot of major corporations outside of solar are using this license to validate and allow solar into their industries, which has been fantastic. But we decided that it's becoming too big for Mentis alone to handle. And again, like I said before, it needs to be a non-monetized effort. And what I mean by that, it needs to be ran by an association. So if we look at other licensed industries, you have the NMLS, you have the National Association of Realtors. These are all associations that provide oversight so that they can report to the government and give them the metrics and the data and all the information they need in order to be able to influence laws, right? So that they can help consumers. We want to do the same thing. So we're going to start providing the technology. We're going to donate it to the industry at no cost. We're going to make sure that associations have access to this tech to be able to use it in full force across board, from registering salespeople to tracking complaints for companies, to make sure that all this stuff can be accessible to the government, to consumers, and is free to salespeople and to sales companies. So that way, this is going to be our bit in helping make sure that this becomes a national initiative.
Wow. So your technology is going to essentially be, for the time being, made free.
Yeah, 100%.
100%. Wow. That's pretty big, because you look at so many industries out there that have regulation. I don't know if anybody's ever done this before.
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Everybody thinks I'm a little bit crazy for it, but
Yeah, but there's some good with that, because I know long term with the DSCS, which is the direct sales certification system, there are other industries that will take advantage of that technology. And
100%. I'm going to get a
your
lot of marketing out of it, so I'm not going to lie. There's always a benefit to everything that we do, but I'm going to get more benefit by making sure that the industry has this and consumers have this than trying to make a quick buck off. We need to
yeah.
quit trying to monetize this effort to protect consumers. Consumer protection should not be a monetized effort, period, end of story.
Yeah. So I know that, and I'm involved with this, that you've asked the Go Green Community Initiative to sort of quarterback and lead some of this integration. And in full
Yep,
disclosure, people know
GGCI.
that GGCI, that I helped found that. So talk about your vision of what this is going to look like in the industry. Because I know when consumers get upset, they don't know where to turn. So they
They
might
have
go,
no idea.
they have no idea. So they might go to the DOE, the EPA. I mean, the EPA has just funded $7 billion in their program for solar
Hmm.
for all. But if there's a problem, where do they go?
Where do
And
they go?
so what's your
Local
vision on
state
this?
governments, attorney generals, Federal Trade Commission. There's no single process in order to be able to have complaints. There's multiple associations across the country that are trying to gather these complaints on the local level. But then as soon as that salesperson is found out, and if they're fired from the current installer that they're in, they can start selling virtually in a different state. They
Sure.
can move to a different state. They can join a summer program or a travel program, and the company's going to hire them because they don't know what happened with the sales company, right?
Right.
So that's the whole point of having this national reciprocity, is working with these associations that are trying to do the right thing, but there's no national reach. So this technology is going to provide that reach, led by GGCI. GGCI is going to jump in, going to speak with all the associations, going to speak with local and federal governments, take over what we started and really combining like a coalition, and ultimately it maybe into forming a larger association ran by the associations like an NMLS or a National Association of Realtors, that really helps all these companies and all these associations who are trying to do the right thing have the national reach to make the impact that they're trying to make without having to spend hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars to be able to either develop the tech or get the get the additional support that they need from companies and organizations that just can't provide it right now.
So validate if I'm getting this right. Okay, so the entire industry, the associations, the agencies, the law, the GAs, these problems exist and they want to do something, but at the core, they don't have the technology to enforce it. Is that really what you're saying here? Because this donation to me looks like that you're actually going to be able to provide a platform to where, regardless of where a complaint comes from or a question, that they can go to this system and get answers. Is
Exactly.
that what you're really talking about?
Exactly.
Okay,
Whether
fantastic.
it's information off of a single sales rep, off of an entire sales organization, validation of work history for a sales rep or a sales organization, that they do work with a specific installer, they don't have a poor track record, they've passed minimum certifications if that's what the state or federal government's going to require in certain territories, or maybe even for some of these funds that you were just talking about that got $7 billion. So if some of these local governments are going to require access for minimum certifications or testing or standards, whatever it is, this can all be validated in a single system.
Yeah.
All the complaints can be tracked. All the exams are taken care of. Background checks can be added to this thing. We already have AI that's validated the identity of each of these salespeople who have to enroll. And it's just making sure that everybody has access to this information, especially consumers.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I like about this is the entire industry does have an advantage right now with tax credits. So we're using public money, right? You take these programs like what the EPA just announced and the Solar for All, I think is a great program, but the consumer has to qualify for that. It's not just open
Yes.
to everybody. The guy down the
Nobody.
street that's making 7 figures, a year, and he decides he wants to go and get solar for all through these programs, he can't qualify. And so it just makes sense. I mean, it's almost radical sense that not only does one side have to qualify for these programs, but those delivering have to qualify for these programs.
They should. And we're working with, you mentioned Tax Hive. Like we're working with the senior management at Tax Hive about putting together actual guidance for solar salespeople and providing that training through the DSCS so that salespeople can hear this is what I should say, this is what I can say, this is what's legal, this is what's not legal, this is what needs to go through CPA or a tax advisor. I shouldn't be saying certain things in my position as a non-licensed individual in that part of the industry, right?
Right.
But there's information that they need to know. And if I went through the whole list of what the DSCS is able to do for the industry, we'd be here for another like 2-3 hours, right? There's a whole bunch like this rivals every required licensed industry because that's what we looked at. So partnerships like that and collaborations like with Tax Hive only help strengthen this. And this is what we want to do, and this is why we feel like GGCI is going to be the best. Because when it comes to collaboration, there's nobody better at it in bringing these organizations together. And it does need to be led by an association to bring everybody together and say, look, here's a coalition, here's a new association, here's a group of associations that all use the same system on a national level to validate these resources, to provide additional training, to make sure consumers have these answers so that their money's protected. They know they were delivered the right information. We protect the funds that are offered to us through all these programs and make sure the industry is long lasting.
Well, what's awesome about this, by taking the path with the nonprofits, is the fact that it takes the concern out of the industry of, oh, someone's trying to profit over licensure or in these standards. And then also it gives a very, I guess, easy button to the industry to say, okay, we're with this agency.
I miss those buttons. Now I wish I had one on my desk.
I don't have one. So it gives them an easy button because then they don't have to stand up funds. So if you look at the 60 plus awardees from the EPAs, and I'm sorry to be focused on this, but it's a big industry news.
It's
big industry news to help a lot more people transition to renewables. This helps them so they don't have to spend money trying to figure out some sort of compliance system to do these things. And so it's really, I think it's industry shattering news. Plus the other thing that I think is important about the timing of this, thanks to net metering law changes, in particular California, where the solar industry was decimated by changing that. And if people aren't familiar with net metering, I have a couple episodes on that. And, essentially what happened in California in net metering 3.0, the consumer is now paid 75% less for the electricity excess that they charge. Combine that with interest rates. The industry's been a tough year. 24 has been a tough year. The end of 23 was a tough year. And so what I'm seeing out there and all the people I talk to, you'd think that, that things would get a little better. But, I think what we're seeing is the desperation is actually causing more bad behavior. So I don't think the timing could be any better.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I've heard this before that, it's like, I didn't mean to say what I said. I had rent due at the end of the month and I just needed to make sure I get paid. Right. Desperation makes people, desperate times call for desperate measures. Right. And we're seeing more and more of that. And homeowners, they're getting desperate and they're making poor decisions without doing the research. And they're trusting the person that just came and knocked on their door without realizing that I'm in NEM3 area and I need to have a battery or this isn't actually going to work for me. And I'm not making what I'm supposed to be making if it was represented as NEM2, right? Like there's a huge problem there. And that's where the misrepresentations come in, where, if they're desperate and they need to save a couple bucks. Like we're seeing not only did the buyback credits go down, but all the actual charges for electricity went up.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So it was a double.
This is happening across the country. It happens all the time.
Right.
Like sometimes it's not nearly as high as like 40-50%, like some of these companies out there when they're knocking on the door say, right? But it goes up. And when gas is up, groceries are up, electricity's up, rent's up, water's up. Your schools, the school football programs now, $80 more than it was before. And I have to look in my wallet and say, oh my God, which bill am I going to pay? Right.
Right.
These are what people are going through and they're trying to save some money on solar and they need to be able to do that with a little bit more certainty, especially in places like NEM, where NEM3 really took a big hit and it's affecting the industry really hard over there.
Yeah, it really is. And you look at the economic pressures that the utility companies are under, you look at the economic pressures that the consumer is under, it just is a recipe for disaster. And so by having this tool available to everyone, it certainly makes things that we can get rid of some of that bad behavior because we can protect the consumer and then force compliance with those who are delivering this solution. So I'm really excited that you guys did this. And
you'd be surprised. The reps that they love this thing. Sales dealers, they love this thing. The installers absolutely love it. As soon as they find out what it actually is and that it's not here for malicious intent, it's like, we're not collecting, we don't even display your personal information on the website. It just says if you're active in a good standing or not. Your phone number and email don't even go up. Like, oh, so this is just here to help us in the customer. It's just here to help you in the customer. And by having GGCI lead it moving forward on the coalition, having other associations come in, we have more and more signing up every single day. And we're going to start seeing it on the homepage, mydscs.org or directsalescertificationsystem.com. Either one of those are going to take you straight there. You're going to start seeing these logos pop up like crazy. And you're going to start seeing these associations taking advantage of the tech and making sure that they're able to track these complaints. And it's going to make more accessible information to the homeowners so that they can really start pushing out the bad players and rewarding the good players in the industry.
Well, as someone who's been in and out of very regulated industries, I think it's going to be a awesome thing to have is a unified standard. And, I know you've been working with industry associations and you've been working with everybody. And this just makes it easy because, in the past, if something like this were to be done, it would be extremely difficult because who's going to pay for the technology?
Right.
And do you want each agency to have their own version of this and that kind of stuff? And of course, licensure will come down to state by state. That always happens. Right. Everybody has particular things they want at each state. But to create these standards, put it into play, it makes a big difference because, we all want a cleaner world. We all want to see more people adopt renewables. It is strategic for all of us. It's good for people. The one thing that I've always found being in this industry, because when I got into solar and stuff, when you talk to somebody and they finally got all the facts, okay, and it was clean and they had all the details, the number one feedback that you get is, why doesn't everyone do this? Well, Everyone doesn't do that because there's too much fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And I think your tools are so great because the DSCS can just help get rid of some of those. Consumers know that they're protected if they're working with somebody. And my understanding is that part of the system is it kicks out a QR code that the representative at the door can actually display on an ID
Yeah.
badge.
They put on their ID badge. They can just pop it up straight to we're trying to keep it as simple as possible for everybody. If you don't want to, they don't have to type in your name. They don't have to remember what your name is. They just take a picture of the QR code.
No, that's awesome. Well, from someone who's really involved in the industry, from podcasting to sales and consulting and all those stuff, I really appreciate what you guys have done because it's a big step forward, and I do know it's going to be impactful. So I appreciate you coming on today. And of course, I have one last question that I have to ask everybody. And I know you've already heard this question because I know you listen in and you've already been asked this question before, but I have to do it to everybody. I have to be an equal opportunity offender. So, everybody has a bucket list of things they want to do before their time is through, and then there's the opposite list. It rhymes with bucket, starts with an F, kind of an F-it bucket, things you'd never want to do. What might be one of the things on Chris Trocola's F-it list?
I think last time I said was I think it was riding in an air balloon was really because that's like the top one on
Really?
my F-it list. So that was last time. What do I have? Uh, there's not a lot that I won't do. Those are the big ones, but I think the other one, and like I'm not afraid of a lot of things, but it'd have to be the squirrel suits. Have you seen? You know what I'm talking about? Like
Oh, yeah.
I
No,
want to do it, but at the same time, like it's like if I never do, I'm happy. Like
when I see those videos online, all I think of split second look away to the wrong thing.
oh,
And
they're like gliding through, like, and I'm like, that's
yeah,
so cool. I would totally do that if there was a gun to my head and I had to do it, or
you
there was to
had
push
to.
my kids off the ledge. Then absolutely, I would jump. But no,
No.
voluntarily, I couldn't do it. Yeah, it's just one of those things. I would have said dancing because I have two left feet, but my wife has made me start dancing recently with her. So,
Okay.
um, gotta get, yeah, I'm actually pretty good at it. I thought
No,
wouldn't
I
be as light
love
on my
that
feet as
one.
I am.
Squirrel suits right up there with me
Well,
too,
squirrel
because
suits and air balloons, and then
yeah.
jumping out of an air balloon with the squirrel suit. That's going to be number one answer now.
That'd be the ultimate. All right. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for coming on and being a good sport and helping us with understand what's happening. I'm excited to start helping share this message across the industry because, being a technologist, we don't have to do things the old way. There's so many great tools out there like what you've built. We don't have to continue to do things hand fighting. So the use of AI that you're doing, making this available to everybody, it's just a great thing. So I appreciate that. I say
Yeah,
that in
let's all get
sincerity.
together.
Yeah.
Let's fix it together. Let's stop trying to do it separately,
Go
right?
there.
So I
Okay.
appreciate everything you do at GGCI. So
I appreciate that.
thanks
All
for
right.
having me on
Well,
again, Rex.
great to have you on, and want to thank everybody for listening today and tuning in. If you're on the video platforms, please make sure you subscribe and hit the notifications. If you're listening on the podcast platforms, please follow the show. And again, we always want to thank our partners in the show, our good friends over at Tax Hive and Smart Energy Centers. And I forgot one, Go Green Community Initiative. So until next time, everyone, thank you for tuning in and listening. We're always here to help you get the education and the information you need. So until next time, I'll say what I always say, thanks and make it a great day.